Hey Jabbers. So today we're chatting about community, how to find it when you're first getting started, how to keep it as you grow your business, and who to keep in your corner. Starting out as an entrepreneur can be scary and lonely, and you need to find community get through that. Starting out as an entrepreneur can be scary and lonely, and you need to find community to get through the ups and downs and to build relationships in your circle. Gabby, how are you doing?
Good, Carrie. Gosh, when they say it takes a village, which I think is this episode exactly, I feel like life and entrepreneurship and just living takes a village. So I am so glad we're talking about community. But yeah, we're good. We've got just lots of animals on the homestead. We've got uh abandoned kitten, we've got new
Oh.
chicks, we've got an injured, like a sick senior dog. I mean, it's just one of those weeks where I'm like, we need all the help we can get from people around us. And so yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. How are you? How's your week
Yeah.
going?
Good, not too bad. I'm have two weddings coming up in May, so I feel like I'm gearing up for those. And yeah, just thinking, I think, yeah, it's everything. Life. And it's like how to prioritize your time.
Truly.
Yeah,
Isn't that always the question?
for sure. But yeah, so today we're talking about community, and Gabby and I have been, entrepreneurs for a while. And I think for us, community has been one of the most important things that we've, had to find, especially as solo entrepreneurs, not really having business partners in the beginning. You want to find that community. So, Gabby, tell me a little bit about how you ended up finding community when you started Cause We Can events.
Yeah. I mean, I think one way to do it, which is how I kind of dipped my toes into events, is I got a corporate job. And that might seem silly as we're saying, wait, we're talking about small businesses, entrepreneurship. But when you're first getting started, finding friends that have like-minded interests such as your job can be really helpful down the line. So I had some corporate jobs in nonprofit event space, the nonprofit event space, and I developed some really great relationships there that I, took with me when I started my own business. So when I did officially go out on my own, I, which I'm sure you felt this too, but I was like, oh my God, like I have nobody to tell me when to start my day, when to clock in, when to clock out, what my next tasks should be. So I really looked online first to see if there were any networking groups in my area. And I think it has evolved tremendously since then. But the very, very beginning, it was really just business networking groups. So we had young female entrepreneur groups. We had overall just like chamber of commerce, like
Hmm.
local business groups. And eventually you kind of find the people, like some groups are a bust, and we'll be honest about that. But some groups you're like, oh my gosh, I like this little pocket of creatives, or I like this networking group because they're mostly about product based businesses or services, whatever that is. And then from there, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but that kind of escalates. So um, I know we kind of met through, well, so we think. We're actually not
We
sure
think.
how,
Yeah, we don't really remember.
we're not sure, but we think we met through one of these types of networking groups um, that led us to where we are today. But yeah, I still use them, and I still use the online version of them too, like the Facebook groups for these
Yeah.
in-person networking groups. Yeah. How about you? Where did you kind of start?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny thinking back on it because I don't know, I feel like it all just kind of like happens, right? You don't think about like those steps of like, what did I actually do to find community? I also feel like things, maybe it's just because I was starting my business, I felt like it was different back then, like 2014. It felt like a lot of people were trying to reach out and like
Mm,
network more. I know COVID kind of changed things, but I felt like I was reaching out to other vendors or other vendors were reaching out to me and we'd like grab coffee all the time or like little meetups one on one, which was cool. Because in the beginning, you're like hungry for that. So you're like, sure, I'll like meet you for coffee on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Now I feel a little bit differently. And I think it's just because I'm busier with my business that I don't do that as much. Like I just don't, I don't know. And sometimes it depends now if it's like beneficial, right? Um, but I think in the beginning it was sort of finding those like networking groups in the area. I feel like I did go to a lot of things like Rising Tide or other planners I feel like would have these like small groups that we would
Mhm.
join, and it was just like little like small business meetups and different things like that. So I think I got connected through a lot of people in the wedding industry that way. And then also just building relationships with people through events that I was doing and like reaching out and using those vendors over and over. I started to build relationships with those vendors, but I think I would even try to go to just like any event in the industry just to meet people. I feel more reserved the older I get. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna stay home.
Yeah, I feel like we're more protective of our time now. And
Yeah.
I was gonna mention, like, okay, so you brought up these coffee dates with vendors. And for those of you who don't know, we're in the wedding and event industry, but the same goes for any other type of business that like people always want to market themselves. But I correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like back when we first started, the coffee dates were authentic. But now I feel like I'm getting sold to all the time. And
Yeah.
I personally turn down a lot of these quote unquote coffee meetings because I'm like, okay, first of all, it takes me over an hour to get to Nashville, downtown Nashville.
Yeah.
Then when I'm there, are we just doing a lame 15-minute, like, here's my pitch? Or are we actually going to hit it off and talk for hours? And that still happens sometimes. I've had a handful of them over the last few years where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I met this person in real life because they're not the same over Instagram. But for the most part, do you feel like it's the nature of the meeting has now kind of changed, or is it that you're protective of your time, or like why aren't you going out as much on real meetings?
Yeah, I think I'm more protective of my time for sure. I also feel like, and maybe this is just like my feeling, but I think I get emails all the time from people or like DMs from vendors who are like, love your work, like would love to connect. Can we be on your preferred vendor list? And I just never feel like it's reciprocated. And so even people that I'm like, I refer you all the time, or like photographers or whoever that want to connect, I'm like, but are you referring me out to people? Because it just feels like very one-sided. Like, hey, let's build a relationship so I can get more work from you. And I feel like it's rare that people are offering, like, hey, I would love to refer you. And
Right.
especially people that DM me on Instagram, I'm like, if you're like, love your work, would love to be on your preferred list, and you're not even following me, I'm like, I'm not even going to talk to you because
Or
you're
they like
not.
call you by your business. They're like, hey,
Yes.
feathered arrow. I'm like, you
Mhm.
could have taken the time to go and look for our name somewhere. It's
It's
somewhere on our
literally
website.
at the top of my
Yeah.
bio. Yeah. And so I think I'm very choosy on like who's reaching out to me. If they actually want to build a relationship, they want to get to know me, and like it's kind of a reciprocal like referral system. Otherwise, I do feel like it's kind of a waste of
Mhm.
time to just like meet up with you if you are doing, like you said, your lame pitch.
Right.
And then, you
Should we
know,
like start every meeting in person being like, so are you gonna do a lame pitch or are we gonna have an authentic conversation?
100%. So, and some people I'll do a phone call with, or, meet up with on Zoom. But even then I'm still like choosy about doing that.
Yeah,
I don't feel like some of them are as beneficial.
no. Okay, and side conversation, which I know this could be a whole other topic. I feel like I do want to talk about like networking best practices, but we don't have to go into that today. But in your opinion, the person reaching out for the meeting or the Zoom meeting would you agree that that person should be the one leading the conversation?
Yes, for sure.
Right? Because
Yeah.
but how many times has it happened where we've been invited to a Zoom call and they're like, "Oh, hey, hi." And so it's just kind of awkward and we're like, how's your day? So you're based in Colorado. Okay. And like they want us to ask them all of these questions about
Yeah.
themselves. But I'm like, you requested this meeting, like, not to say like impress me, but like impress me.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, because I feel like I can carry on a conversation with most people, but I do feel awkward in those situations where I'm like, okay, did you want to like ask certain questions? Or because I'm like, I'm happy to ask questions back, but I need you to like get it started. Otherwise,
Right.
did you reach out to me if you're wanting me to lead the conversation?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So a whole separate episode about
Yeah.
networking best practices is coming soon because
Oh,
that's important.
100%.
Um, okay,
Yeah.
but why do you okay, I mean, community, there's a million reasons here for this next question, but why to you specifically was it important to find community?
I mean, I think coming after leaving a job where I was on a team and like went to the office every day and sat next to people and like had conversations all day long, I suddenly found myself like working from my bedroom and not really having any like social interaction all day long besides like email and, Instagram and things like that. Um because even for our jobs, like, I would say 90% of it is, like, email, like, back-end communication, like, we're not out at meetings all the time or, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, every couple of weeks, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I have a stack of meetings," whether they're virtual or in person, but it's not like every day I'm at a venue or, like, going out and about to things, and so I think I just found myself feeling really lonely, and a lot of my friends weren't entrepreneurs either. They all had like regular jobs, corporate world. And so it just was hard to connect with them on my business as well. And so I think I just needed to find people who were doing the same thing, like starting a business and connecting with those people. And then, especially down the line, like making friends with people specifically for me in the wedding industry and more specifically wedding planners, because
Mhm.
I like needed someone who understood like the woes
Yeah.
and the good things as well. And really it was like, like, what do I do in this particular scenario? Like, I need advice, but it wasn't I needed to specifically talk to another wedding planner, right? And so, I think for me, it was really just finding people who were, like, in the same boat as me.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
remember during COVID, we had, and it's still going, we have this Facebook chat with other planners. The name has now changed to something, but it used to be like planners COVID chat or something.
Mhm.
And we were all messaging each other, being like, okay, I just had a client say they want to postpone. What the heck does that mean? And what do we do? And we had no idea what to do. And so we were all talking back and forth, and a lot of people were sharing their resources. Like one person said, okay, my dad's a lawyer. Here's what he suggested we put in our contract moving forward. Or
Yeah.
my, whatever is a whoever. And so that was like free resources in a time of need where I think a lot of other careers probably they have associations or bigger groups of community where as a small business we're kind of left to our own to find our people.
Yeah.
And anyway, I found during COVID like community was so important, and especially because we were stuck at home for such a long period of time,
Yeah.
we needed to interact with people.
For sure. Do you think for you, I guess, why was it important for you to find community? Because I mean, I think, well, you have Jess, who's like a partner kind of with you, but in the beginning, it was just you, right? Like, when did Jess sort of come into the picture?
Yeah. Yeah, same as you. And I still, Jess and I only know so much and we're working together on in the same business. So we kind of have our blinders on in our business, but it's nice to get opinions and insight from other people.
Yeah.
And she's really good at going out in her local community in Maine and networking and asking other planners and vendors questions, of struggles that she's going through or just general things that she's seeing online. And then I do the same in Nashville. I'm actually part of this group called the Nashville Wedding Planners Group. And I'm the education chair. So I'm responsible of putting together educational events. Um, and it's been so fun for a few reasons. One, I am obviously connected to all these amazing planners, but I'm also in this role of authority in a way. Like I'm a chair member on this board in a group that is well known in Nashville in the wedding industry, and I get to say, "Hi, I'm part of the Nashville Wedding Planners Group. We're looking to host an event at blah blah blah." And so we get free rental rates, we get discounted catering, we get free, so I've
Nice.
connected with a lot of other small businesses that way. I have this really great in with some of the businesses, so that's been a huge advantage. Um, but to long story short, to answer as we do, to answer your question, I think, yeah, it was the fact that there's no guidebook to being an entrepreneur, kind of like what you were saying. There's nobody to tell you exactly how to do it, and there's no one way to do it. So, being part of a community where everybody has done it slightly different, but everybody is doing it and it's working out is so cool because you get to pick and choose parts to implement in your business. So yeah, not being lonely, learning, and I don't know, helping you grow.
Yeah, I mean, because so Gabby was in Los Angeles and then you moved to Nashville right
4
during the
years ago.
pandemic?
Yeah, April 2020.
Yeah. So for you, even it's kind of like starting a whole new community. What was that like for you? Because I feel like that can be daunting, right? You're kind of like, I had an established network of people and now it's like starting all over again, even though you were seasoned in your business.
So true. I think the big thing that helped was these online communities. I am still part of many that were, I guess we could say, were LA based, but like these planner groups, there's no reason why I can't ask for help from LA planners, even if I'm in Nashville for a lot of things, right? If it's vendor
Yeah.
recommendations in Nashville, then of course that doesn't make sense. But for the most part, I think the beauty of online is it's global. So you can be part of a group. In fact, I was part of this Facebook group for women who invest. I was like really into it a few years ago and I was curious. And they're based in Australia, but like the information was legit. Of course, I had to, some of the banks they name weren't the same and whatnot. But
Yeah.
all that to say, there's really very, very few limitations online. Um, I also, before I even moved, I started looking on Instagram for planners locally in Nashville. That's how I found the Nashville Wedding Planner Group. I immediately reached out and said, "Hey, I'll be there in April 2020. Like, I'd love to join, blah, blah, blah." Um, yeah, so I can't say that it was too hard. They were very welcoming. There are other groups, however, that I've dipped my toe in out here and I dipped it right out. And I was like,
Okay.
peace, that's not my
Not
gang.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just maybe encourage people to try it anyway, not have to commit to a full membership fee if there is one, but sometimes they give you like a free meeting or you can come in and as a guest to somebody, and not to be afraid of leaving a group if it's not the right fit, right?
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to remember, like, to not feel pressured to be in any sort of group or groups that feel very prominent and large, because there is like recruitment for some of those groups, but I think it's like figuring out what works for you and finding the people that you're vibing with, I guess, so to speak, because like every group is a little bit different and it's just, I don't think it's like a one size fits all type of thing. And so, I think it is sort of like dipping your toes in and figuring out what works best for you.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have any challenges, I guess, in finding the right community, or do you have a few groups where you gain something from everything and you kind of bounce around?
Yeah. I think in the beginning, I felt like way more involved in a lot of different groups and they were great. And I would definitely go to more meetings. And then, like I said, COVID hit, and I think a lot of it moved to like virtual online stuff, which I feel like is still kind of what I do. Just, different like masterminds or groups that we're a part of even online, which is a lot of Facebook groups. I've been feeling the pull now more to like do things back in person again because I do kind of feel like I'm missing that like in-person connection or even just kind of expanding my circle. It's like I've been doing this for 10 years and I still feel like I need to network to help my business grow. Like it's still an ongoing thing. I don't think it ever is just like, great, I've built a community and I feel like good to go forever. And so I think just building those relationships, continuing to do that is important for me. And so I have been looking more for like other masterminds or just like in person networking things to go back to.
Yeah, and sometimes you outgrow your group, like you and I are part of a really great sales group that we
Mhm.
paid to be in, but we have access for life. And I have moments where I read the stuff and I'm like, "Oh, that was me like 5 years ago," And nothing wrong with that. But then there are moments where I'm like, "Oh my god, that person like holy crap, they booked, however
Yeah.
half a million dollar event. Good for them, like, I wonder what they did, and so I think groups kind of ebb and flow, and, they do say, right, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself
Yeah.
with, so I
Mhm.
think about that a lot in just business sense and thinking, "Okay, do I have people around me that are challenging me? Do I also have people that I can help? So, and then I'm the average of all those people. And I think slowly everybody kind of moves along together. But yeah. Um, Speaking of online, because I know that's a lot of what's going on right now, what do you feel for somebody listening are maybe pros and cons of doing online? Can they only do online community? Should they go in person? What are your thoughts?
I I mean, I think it's a balance of both because I think online is great. I think it's less time consuming. I think there's like wealth and knowledge available whenever you want to go look at it. Like these Facebook groups, you can see like what people are posting, questions, answers that people are responding to. Um and some of those are great because like we said we have meetups, right? So we're like meeting people virtually on Zoom. Um, and some of those I've been able to take offline and like meet up in person, or we have like a separate Zoom meeting just to get to know each other one on one. But I think going to like in person events and like actually talking to people in person and mingling is still so beneficial. It just feels like a better connection.
An
And I,
energy. I feel like there's
yeah.
just an energy about in person.
And I feel like I'm more apt to remember someone and vice
Mhm.
versa and like who they are, their business, and like really just that in person connection, I think is
Yeah.
huge.
Okay, wait, Carrie, when you meet someone in person, okay, so I have like instant memory loss. This is a problem that Jessica and I have been talking about. I don't remember things that are told to me. I think it's just short term. I don't know. But do you have a trick to remembering people's names when you first meet them?
No, I would also say I'm bad at that. Like I'm so focused on introducing myself that I like don't hear their name.
I'm so
And I'm like, what
paralyzed
was
with
it?
fear.
Yeah, I don't have a trick, but I should. I feel like if I can get their Instagram, then I
Yes.
can like go back and like when I get home and like look over their Instagram and then I'm like it's easier to remember them, but
Yeah. What
in the
if we
moment I'm like, who was that again?
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I learned someone told me this really good trick, like a networking trick to be recognizable in a room because part of like our earlier
Hmm.
discussion was how do you stand out and not just pitch your same old thing and be boring? Well, this person was like, be the person who introduces everybody. So, for example, if you're going to
Oh,
an event and you know ahead of time, you maybe request the guest list or you know ahead of time a few people are going to be there that you go over and you say, Carrie, I want you to meet Jessica. Jessica is a planner for Cause We Can events out in Maine. She does these amazing blah, 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 blah. and then you kind of let them talk and you leave. And then you find somebody else. You're like, oh my God, Josie, I want you to meet Bill. Bill is da 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 da. Da. And
Just
so
work in
now,
the room.
yeah, you're just like working the room. And then after that, people are like, oh my gosh, Gabby was so great. She introduced me to Bill. She introduced me to Jessica and Carrie and da da da. And so now people are remembering you for
Mm,
not necessarily you having to pitch yourself about what you do, but they remember you as this like personality, friendly, introducing everybody, obviously well connected if you
yeah.
know the people at this event. So I thought that was really interesting. And I haven't tested it out because I haven't gone to an event since I've learned that information, but I'm going to try it and I'm going to report back.
Yeah, I love that. I also think to that point, for those of you that are introverted and you're like, that sounds like my worst nightmare. Also, like, what if I'm going to an event? I don't know people. I think I always try to remember that, like, most people don't know each other in a room. There might be like groups of people or like, one or two people, but I think you can walk in and feel like everyone is friends, everyone knows everyone, and they're not going to talk to me. But once I start just like and sometimes it's awkward, right? You like walk up to someone at a cocktail table and you're
Yeah.
like, "Can I stand here?"
Let's both be
And then
awkward.
it's like, "Hey, my name's Carrie, what's your name?" And it's just kind of like the conversation flows. So I think try to remember that not everyone knows everyone in the room, and like people are wanting to start the conversation, but nobody wants to start it. So if you can be that person who's even just like introducing yourself, because then you kind of find in conversation they're like, I don't really know anyone either, and then it feels like more relaxed in the situation, and then you start finding other people that are like, I don't know anyone either, and it just helps kind of create more of a group.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Good tips for introverts because it is hard. It is really hard, especially like post COVID. I hate to keep saying that, but it changed us. Like people
Yeah,
don't know how to talk to each other
I
anymore.
mean, I feel like I'm extroverted and I still go to things that I'm like, I feel like I'm in like fifth grade. I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone's friends. I'm on the outside. I don't know if anyone wants to be friends with me. It kind of feels like this like weird like thing in your
Click.
head where it's like everyone's a clique type of
Yeah.
thing. And half the time it's not true. So I try to just remind myself that like people want to mingle and meet other people.
Yeah. Oh, so true. Okay, well let's talk about that. Let's talk about community over competition, clicks, all that good stuff. So I think depending on the industry you're in, depending on the city you're in, depending on a million different things, sometimes you might think of community as being, oh, you want me to hang out with my competitors? No
Right.
thanks. But yes, that's what we're saying. Truly, it can be. It could also be similar types of businesses, but not quite competitors. But even if it's competitors, Carrie, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on community over competition. Why is that an important saying that people are kind of living by these days in the small business world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to be like, I can't be friends with someone who's doing exactly what I'm doing because we're vying for the same clients. But I don't think that's true because, I mean, take Gabby and I, for example. Like when she lived in LA, we had a lot of similar clients, even though Gabby has more of like a niche audience of like festival weddings or like in the middle of nowhere, like desert weddings. I just feel like our brand spoke to our ideal clients.
Mhm.
And yes, I think like there's an overlap of clients that we would both take on. They're both ideal for us, but it never felt like a competition. I felt more like a friendship of being able to talk about things we were going through, celebrate wins, someone to have wine with, and also someone to like need help from, right? Like we've both worked events with each other,
Yeah.
and it's so great to be like, okay, I know Gabby knows what she's doing because she does this all the time. And so like I don't have to train her. She can just come and help me with an event and vice versa. Like we just kind of can be like one step ahead and like know what you need, know what to do. And so I think versus seeing people as competition. It's just like, oh, they're in my circle. And I think most people have like different differences enough that are like so specific to who they're attracting that you're going to attract different people. And
Mhm.
sometimes even like we've sent, clients to each other. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm booked. And so, but I know another great planner that you can reach out to. And so even from that has come like a referral system.
Yes.
And I think building a larger network of people in your exact same job has been helpful to like build that referral system too.
Yeah, and you don't wanna be known as the Scrooge of the
Yeah.
industry where you're hoarding all the, like, information or clients or, obviously, if somebody's a repeat client, nobody's gonna try to poach them, But, um I've just honestly, I've just seen things go better when we've been open to sharing stuff. I
Yeah.
especially appreciate when people are really raw and honest about tough conversations they've had with clients so that we can learn what they did or didn't do and we can be better because we know it's going to happen to us too. Like a lot of these we've had, clients cancel contracts because they break up or stuff where there's sickness in the family and they want to cancel. We just dealt with this recently where we're not refunding the deposit. They have a family member who's ill. They paid a deposit. It is very clearly non-refundable and they're mad, but I have seen my friends and competitors and community go through this themselves and they've held strong and they remind me that like I'm a small business
Yeah.
that had already scheduled this time to do this person's wedding and now it's canceled. That's not my fault and I feel terrible that their family is going through something, but I have to honor our contract so that people coming by, future clients will feel like,
Yeah.
oh, she's respectful of her contract no matter what. So
For
anyway, I
sure.
just yeah, I agree. I think being friends is way better than being enemies.
Yeah. And I think the benefits are so much greater. Like if you're kind of isolating yourself and you're like, I can't be friends with people who feel like my competition, I think you are isolating yourself from opportunities where like
Mm.
becoming friends with those people really just kind of opens up the door for so many things. And sometimes it does suck. Like I remember last year I had this great call with this client, potential client, and I was so stoked about it. And it was out in the desert. And then I see another planner I know a couple weeks later post about like welcoming these people to her team, like new clients. And I felt so defeated in the
Uh,
moment of like, man, I felt like they got taken away from me.
yeah,
But then after I like thought about it for a while, I was like, you know what? They must have felt like she was a better fit for them and I think it at the end of the day, I was like, okay, that's fine. You know what? Those clients weren't meant for me. I'm glad they found someone who
yeah,
was a better fit. And I know this person, and it's like, if that works better for them, great. And so I think it's also just like not feeling like she took them from me, but being
right.
like that client found a perfect fit for them. And maybe it wouldn't have gone so great for us because bumps and different things that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do for them or understand where like maybe she just understood their vision better, different things like that.
Totally. I always like this saying, they say something like when the universe doesn't give you what you want, you just say or you say something like I want this or something better. So if
Yeah.
you don't get this client, it's because you have something better coming. So I always think about that when there is like I get a no or I get a cancellation or I get a whatever something's not working out. I'm like, okay, so it's not going to be this, but it's going to be something better. So I am not upset about it. And I found that to be true in the client space. Like, also the opposite has been true when I have like made anything possible work for a client who I should not have taken on and they have been a nightmare.
Hmm.
So I need to let the no just go and not fight for it every time, because something better will come in its place.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. And I think also to the note of like creating community amongst like clients and past clients, right? I feel like I have a lot of past clients, and not every client kind of sticks around or, supports you through your business. But I have a lot of clients who are so supportive. Like they still follow me on Instagram. They have kids now. They are on my email list still and things like that. But they're still advocates. And so I think even creating a community around like an email list and
Mm.
different things like that and cultivating and just reminding those people, right? Of like, hey, we're booking for next year. If you know anybody, please send them our way. Cause I think getting to the top of the minds of past clients and still kind of providing more information about your business is super helpful.
Yeah.
And like, especially those people that like loved you, you're kind of like became
Yeah.
friends with them. They like want to support you as you continue on your journey. And so I found that to be helpful too, just like kind of cultivating that community with past relationships too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, keep being on the front of their mind is hard to do because everyone's inundated with so much advertising and just they're seeing so many people all the time. So that's a good reminder to past people. Um, yeah, and keep them on our radar.
Yeah.
I was looking at the time. So
I know, I can see we're looking at the time.
30, I'll do a laugh.
We'll
36
pause that.
minutes in, which is fine for like these solo episodes.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried. Um, what else? Do we want to say
I know.
anything else about it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we both kind of talked about challenges in our community. Maybe I'll just ask you like any other final tips for people who are just getting started or
Okay, let me think if I have
if you
any.
or it
um,
could sort of be like a recap too.
yeah, we can both do. Okay, let me do like an outro, and I'll just say maybe, and we can do final tips. Like, Kari, this was such a great conversation. What do we have any final tips before going? And then you'll say some tips, I'll say whatever.
Okay.
And then I'll say, don't forget to be part of our community by
Yeah.
reviewing this podcast and sharing it with your friends.
Perfect.
Okay. And action. All right, Kari, this is such a fun conversation. I am so glad you're part of my community.
Me too.
What are some final tips that we can give our listeners on whether they're finding community, looking like they don't know how to begin to look for their community? What's something you wish you knew when you started finding your community?
Yeah. I mean, I think the best thing you can do is just look for local groups. And like I know we've joined things like Rising Tide Society or, just finding like local chapters of things. Like you said, there's like a local wedding planner group, or whatever your specific industry is. And even just finding individuals, right? Because they might be a part of a group. And so I think reaching out to people, introducing yourself, even if it's not a coffee or a phone call, just be like, I'd love to get to know you better. Are there any groups like hey, I just moved here, or like I'm new to the area or the industry. Do you have any networking groups I can join? Um, but yeah, I think finding individuals that you want to connect with, whether it's like their work, anything like that, and honestly, if you Google anything, I feel like in your local area, it'll come up, whether it's a Facebook group or anything. And so I think just dip your toes in and like go try out a group. And I think you'll find it's way easier than I think the fear of it
Yeah.
is way greater
Yeah.
than what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a big commitment, but don't feel like it has to be. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, if it's a super big group, they may not notice that you're gone. So
Yeah.
don't, like make the friends that you need to make while you're there. And then if you just want to get together with those people, you can. So No, I really love this. I want you all to feel like you can be part of our community too. So we hang out on Instagram at Just Another Biz Podcast. We'd love for you to come and chat with us, tag us there. If you loved this podcast and want to support us and our small but growing community, please like and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are listened to. And we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, Jabbers.
Bye.